Hello friends, we're back again. It's Fightful Overbooked, and it's time for, listen, I always say it's everybody's favorite, but like, come on, it's my favorite, it's your favorite. If it's not your favorite, then it's our little secret. It's so bad, it's good. I'm here with Josh. Josh, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. I'm doing fantastic. I've changed my setup again. I know I don't want to be that guy that always changes his setup, but I was trying to get it right for this. And I feel like this is like a nice little time. So, I'm ready. I'm doing good. How are you doing though?
I am doing fantastically well. You may even say I am feeling stupendous. You may even say today I'm feeling like going a little extreme.
Oh?
Yeah. I want to hop in the time travel machine. I want to make amends for Bobby Lashley not making it into the 2022 Elimination Chamber, and I want to go all the way back to 2006 to a little show, and I do mean little, called the ECW December to Dismember. Now, don't turn off the video. I know. Don't do it. Don't turn it off. I know everyone's gonna say, it's all been talked about. Here's another podcast that's going to talk shit about ECW. No, okay, we're not.
We could.
We could.
We won't.
Stick around. Tell them what we're talking about today, Josh.
Oh, well, you say ECW December to Dismember, and people could just be like, well, that could mean literally any match on that entire show. And you're right. And one day, maybe Joel and I will sit down on Twitch and do a little watch along of this show, because we would probably need to be drunk, and that's fine, because it is very hard to get through. It is a very difficult show to get through. But we are talking about, I guess, the main event. Well, it is the main event of that show, the Extreme Elimination Chamber, the one and only Extreme Elimination Chamber in history. So I guess, if anything, it has that.
Yeah, it was certainly the last match of the night. It needed a lot of time to build, because people were suddenly pulled from matches. And they had to put weapons in the chambers, in the pods specifically. Yeah, that was it existed.
What was the original lineup for this ECW Elimination Chamber? What was the original 6 men? Because I know men were pulled from this like as early as that night, weren't they?
So as far as I understood it, it was sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes here. It was Test, it was Lashley, it was Big Show, who was the ECW champion, it was CM Punk, RVD, and Sabu. But they pulled Sabu at the last minute. I don't know if they pulled other people.
No, so I didn't know the whole. I know there's a lot of interesting stories that happen with this show. There's a lot of talk surrounding this show, going into this show, of who wanted to be in what match, and Paul Heyman wanting specific things and Vince McMahon wanting other things. Now, me and Joel don't know crap from clay. We really don't. We don't know what the whole story is, but we can only speculate that I don't think that these 6 men would be the original lineup. I don't know why. I just feel that way.
I think you're right. I think the one person that they replaced ended up being the right guy to replace Sabu, because you think about who they ended up getting to, well, let's just spoil it now. It was Hardcore Freaking Holly. And, the people who were in the ring were more shocked than the nearly there was less than 5,000 people in the arena. So
where was this show?
It was at the James Brown Arena. And the James Brown Arena is, oh my God, it's in Georgia. It's in Augusta.
Okay.
It's now the Augusta Entertainment Complex. Yeah.
I can't say that I've heard of many wrestling shows taking place there, but I could be wrong.
It's a big enough place, but they did not come close to selling it out. And when Hardcore Holly came out, they were not excited like the wrestlers were in that match. By the way, do you remember what they used to call the wrestlers in ECW back in 2006?
The Extremists, weren't they?
Yeah, I think we just got demonetized because of that.
Probably.
Yeah,
They used to call their women something else too. They didn't call them divas, from my understanding. I don't know what they were called, but I don't think they called. I could be talking out of my ass here.
Were they called vixens?
I think they were something like that. They weren't divas, I know that, and they weren't extremists. They might have been called vixens. It was only for that very short period of time when they weren't called.
They were called vixens.
They were called Vixens. That's right.
Yes.
So ECW had Extremists, which were their men, and then Vixens, which were their women, the diva equivalent. Which is, hey, I'll give them this. They tried to be different.
You ever wonder why ECW failed? Because I mean, if you're gonna do Extremists and Vixens and Extreme Elimination Chambers with weapons and pulling very popular wrestlers at the last minute to replace some of those, you'd think that would be a successful model for business.
Yeah. Listen, again, we could do a whole episode, and maybe one day we'll do a mega episode on what the hell was ECW or WWE ECW. Whether people want to admit it or not, it still was ECW, I guess. It had the name. If this was called anything else, I think ECW could have survived in a sense. Like, this could have survived in some capacity. But I don't really ever wonder why it failed because, listen, it was doomed from the very beginning that it was called ECW, and we seen a zombie walk out on that very first episode. We're like, yeah, this isn't going to be what it is. And hey, listen, we had Kelly taking her clothes off for some episodes. So,
by the way, coming soon to Here's Why You're Wrong on Fightful Overbooked, Kate and I, for some reason, are going to debate the original ECW versus WWECW.
Oh my God, I want to be a fly on the wall on that conversation. Oh my God.
Get subscribed for that one, friends. Hit that bell for notifications and leave a thumbs up while you're here in this video. Let's talk about the weapons in the chamber. So you go into your pods. Every pod has, first of all, let's talk about the main weapon, and that is the damn chamber itself. It's not the chamber you see today. It's not the chamber we just saw at the last pay-per-view. No, it is the original Elimination Chamber where there is a lot of steel, a lot of chains, and a lot of pain. That was the chamber that was used. Now,
listen, the old chambers are they're much more brutal. I will say this, and I don't know, people can come at me in the comments for this. I'm not a fan of the Elimination Chamber gimmick. Never have been. I don't think I've ever watched a chamber that I've truly just been like, hell yeah, like sign me up for this chamber. I think every chamber that I've watched has been a dud, in my opinion. I don't like them.
That's fair.
So when you put in weapons, you think, oh my God, that's going to be so much better. Absolutely not. This is going to be even worse. It's just overly gimmicky. But the old chambers were much more brutal than what we see today, which I think, by the way, I love brutal stuff, but at the same time, it does probably, a lot of people have said the chamber is hurts. It wasn't fun to be in a chamber. So I can understand why they remodeled it. I don't know, lack of better term.
No, remodel's right. I wouldn't want to do any bumps on steel grates either. I would much rather have a little bit of padding, as minimal as it is. At least it gets the job done.
Still looks cool, and it still looks very modern now. But this, they had legitimate weapons inside of the pod, so you can imagine the cluster that we're about to talk about.
Yeah. So in each pod, they feature, one is a barbed wire bat. Another pod has a table in it. Because whatever, sure. There's a chair, and that very much comes into play later. And a crowbar. And they're all just sitting there chilling in their random pods. Out comes first the ECW champion, Big Show. And he gets into his pod with the barbed wire baseball bat. And before he even goes into his pod, he's just like waving the thing around and just being like, look at me. I'm a big giant champion with a big barbed wire baseball bat. And bitch. Yeah, exactly. Show gets into his pod. Punk comes out next. Big, grandiose cheering. Everyone loves CM Punk. Grabs the chair, gets into his pod. Out comes Test.
Who I love. Love Test.
Test is on something, and he grabs that crowbar. He's excited. And then Lashley comes out, and he gets the table. He doesn't even get to swing it around or anything. He just gets in there. And he's just like, hey, make room for Lashley. And Table's like, nah, I'm a table.
That's kind of the sentiment of Lashley in ECW, though. Make room for Lashley.
Kind of,
He just didn't fit, especially in the very beginning. Remember, up until this show, Paul Heyman was the man writing ECW, I guess you could say. Well, he was the head of creative. He was not in charge. I mean, no one's ever in charge of WWE unless you're Vince McMahon. But he was the head honcho in a sense.
Yep.
So you wouldn't really. Well, I wouldn't really suspect of being like Paul Heyman, Bobby Lashley. No disrespect to Bobby Lashley, but he was not what we know now with Bobby Lashley. In 2006, Bobby Lashley was not Bobby Lashley. You know what I mean? Like he was on a trajectory, but he was not ECW esque. He wasn't an extremist, I guess you could say.
Oh, that's right. There's that word again.
Ugh.
Anyway, so Bobby Lashley's out. He gets the table. Hardcore Holly comes out next, and they had to sit on it for a second because he's replacing Sabu. Crowd doesn't know. And then Holly comes out, and everyone's like, oh my God, what the hell is he doing here? But this is the perfect guy. And the crowd is like, huh? And the wrestlers are just like, yeah, woo. Tess is like going crazy in his pod. He's super stoked. And then the crowd is ready because RVD comes out last.
Yeah. And he's like the saving grace, by the way, for that crowd is RVD. I don't think I've ever seen a pro wrestling crowd that isn't excited to see Rob Van Dam. But especially in this match, listen, Hardcore Holly is great. We love Hardcore Holly because we love wrestling. But to a greater appeal, he's just Bob Holly. You know what I mean? He's just whatever.
Hardcore Holly, Bob Holly is forever the GOAT in my book because he had the gall to pitch in a creative meeting. How about you give me the belt? And then what happens? I beat everybody. That alone just makes Hardcore Holly the man. Okay.
Also, he's one tough son of a, you know what? He is tough. And if you want someone in there to get someone roughed up, cool, you call on Mr. Holly because he will. We've seen incidences where Hardcore Holly was a little stiff in the ring.
Well,
he kind of gets 2004.
Right. Well, he kind of gets it back on this in this match, and we'll talk about it in a second. But by the way, another thing I love about Hardcore Holly, the man says that he'll just put his phone face down on the kitchen table for days, walk away, and just not even think about it.
The willpower. I could not do that.
He's got something, man, from a different world, that man, I swear. So the crowd is kind of quiet. They're doing the thing.
Come on now. That's kind.
I could hear crickets is what I could hear.
Even they're asleep. Like that's how quiet this is. Where did you say this was, Georgia? I mean, they weren't in for a treat. Can you, hey, let's rewind a little bit with this match and this pay-per-view in particular. I'm assuming you were watching at this time. Yeah?
Yeah, I was.
Were you at all just ready to watch ECW December to Dismember?
Absolutely not.
Me either. Don't even remember ordering the pay-per-view, to be completely honest. Back when we had to order pay-per-views, guys.
Remember those times?
Oh God, $40. See you later. I don't remember ordering this pay-per-view. I think this was one of those ones. I mean, I was like 11, so I wasn't the one ordering it. But I mean, I think it was probably one of those ones I watched on DVD a few months later when it came out.
I don't think I ever really watched it until I got the network. If I had to be,
I had to be unfortunately honest. Watched it. I remember being excited for the Hardy Boys because they were back on this show,
and that was the match of the night. I'm trying to remember. So I was in second year university at this point.
Damn.
So I was probably home for the winter because the show was in December, of course, December to Dismember. So I would have been at home, and I probably would have not watched it. Normally my friends and I would get together. We'd go out to like the local bar and, have some food, have some drinks, watch the show because it was a good excuse to get together. That night, I don't think we did.
I don't blame you. I don't remember what I was doing whenever this aired. Like I said, I would have been 10, 11 years old. I would have been off of school because it was December. So we're in our summer break here. Listen, I could have watched this live. I could have very well watched this live. I don't think I did. I don't actually even think WWE. I don't think Australian pay-per-view were even carrying this pay-per-view, to be completely honest.
So really, if WWE had carried that pay-per-view in Australia, it could have saved ECW.
Definitely, with the huge audience that Australia has of wrestling, I could imagine we might be talking about ECW as the brand that saved us all.
That's right. Anyway, probably not. So they get to the next entrance in the match, and it's CM Punk. But I got to point out that every time that they had the Elimination Chamber music, they had the grainy overhead camera flashing the color, the light down on every pod. And all of a sudden, it signifies each next entrance with a gong. And it's like the Gong Show gong. And I'm just sitting there laughing, being like, the next contestant is CM Punk. Enter the Gong Show. And he comes in hot, and he's got the chair. And like crowd is into it. He's over. They're using that chair in every way imaginable.
Yes, the chair is a
cool.
staple of this match. I will say about this match, it gets that we are having a funny haha. But if I'm going to break it down from a match perspective, it's not like completely awful. It's just really weird. That's how I describe. It's not a bad match. It's just odd. Like there's just something off. The crowd's not really feeling it. They love Rob Van Dam and they love CM Punk. I'll give them that. Punk was over, and obviously so was RVD. But like, if we were to rewind, and hindsight is 2020, if CM Punk was to win this match here, who knows what could have really happened?
It's true.
But I'm not saying just because of Lashley, you know what I mean? Like, but to a certain degree, like Lashley was not the crowd's guy. I think the crowd would have been happy if RVD had won or if CM Punk had won. We're talking in hindsight here, and we know what happens to the ECW championship, Vince McMahon. But, it is, listen, hey, former ECW champion Vince McMahon with the do-rag on his head too. That was a time. Good for him, I guess. But yeah, Bobby Lashley, it wasn't what the crowd wanted. The crowd didn't want a lot out of this show. They just wanted something. And they didn't really get a lot of substance. But the chair was really cool. The way they utilized the chair in this match is like, man, that's a good way to use a chair. We had a lot of chair spots that, we'd seen before in the past in wrestling. But, we didn't really see. All together, it was kind of nice.
They did the chair spot where RVD gets thrown into the turnbuckle and there's a chair wedged into it by CM Punk. And then Punk gets out of the ring and he kicks the chair while it's across RVD's neck. Stuff like that is really neat. But also, there were so many headshots.
Ooh,
it was uncomfortable amounts.
Ooh.
Yes. Like leg drops onto chairs, monkey flips onto chairs, sure. Fine. But like when you start getting into kicking chairs into heads and there was
especially
a lot of that
at this time where like a few months away from all of that coming to light.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking about. And if you don't, then
don't need to talk about it.
You don't need to know. But like, listen, chair shots to the head at the time. Sure. I was like, sign me up. I love a little bit of, stuff, but knowing what we know now, and honestly, it's just not worth the, you know what I mean? And then we just move along. But there was a lot of chair shots to the head, and I was watching this last night and I was like, this the entire time, like,
doesn't age well.
Just let's just move along from that because oh boy.
So later on in the match, Test comes in and he's got his happy little crowbar and he maims everybody with it. He just goes absolutely ham on it. If you're going to get any weapon from this match, would you think the crowbar would be the one you would take, or is there a different one you would prefer?
God.
Jeez, you got a barbed wire bat, a chair, a table, and
I'll get put through a table. I'd go through a table. I feel like that would like almost break your fall to the canvas.
Fair. It also ends up getting you out of a cage if you're in a predicament. We'll get to that in a second. So RVD does more headshots with the chair, and then Punk gets eliminated after a 5-star frog splash by RVD. Punk out, crowd not happy. And then Test kicks Hardcore Holly's head off. And there's an awkward 3 count because we're talking about working stiff. I think Hardcore Holly was knocked the fuck out.
Listen, I have not sworn this show once. Get ready to censor me because holy my goodness, did he kick him in the head. He has a killer big boot.
That was something else. And to watch Holly basically be out on his ass at that point because he had been knocked down and pinned. There was just a very awkward 3 count. I thought it was a near fall because nobody said anything. And then all of a sudden he was out of the match. Okay, sure. RVD then gets eliminated because Test goes after Rob Van Dam, who is on top of a pod, hits him in the head with a chair, drags him off of the pod and onto the mat, goes for an elbow drop off the pod onto a chair that is on RVD's head. RVD is eliminated and the crowd is going absolutely mild. They don't give a shit.
This is where it just goes from that awkwardness that I was talking about in this match to like, oh no, we're entering a very dangerous territory here where, listen, I'm not saying it had heat because no one cared. It wasn't like, Roman winning the Rumble, that kind of heat where people actually gave a crap. They just didn't. You want some noise. They would dream of having that kind of heat in this match, but they had nothing. There was not a single care in the world.
They send out the security forces of Paul Heyman to not even bolt Bobby Lashley's pod door shut. They took a nightstick, a pitry old nightstick, and they just put it against the pod door and hope that he can't slide it open. So what does Lashley do? He uses his table. How would you use a table to get out of a pod that has steel chain up top and Lexan covering it? How would you get out?
If I had the table, I guess maybe just use the table to smash through the glass, or try and try and get yourself out through the top.
He goes for the top. There's supposed to be chains. I have never broken chains with a table before.
A wooden table.
Yeah, a flimsy wooden table.
Yeah. Listen. My mind went to go through the top, obviously, because that's what I would do.
Anyway, he goes to the top. I would have just gone through the Lexan pod. I would have just smashed my way through it. But hey, whatever, goes up through the top and over. And then he whips Test into the pod, which is then into the table. And I'm like, okay, maybe the pod was bulletproof. And then no, it's not, because he goes through the pod. Okay. Anyway, they use the chair, they use the crowbar. Lashley hits a spear after he hits Test in the stomach with the crowbar. I like this. That was smart. And Test is eliminated. And then the Big Show is left. And they make you wait for the Big Show. And then what does Lashley do while he's waiting for the Big Show? Grabs the table and he launches it at the pod. And then he grabs the chair and he launches it at the pod containing the Big Show. And they're just making you wait for Big Show until he finally comes out and he's got his big barbed wire bat. And then it's joust time.
Listen, the booking of this match is just... the booking of this match is so bad, it's bad.
Yeah, we just ruined our own show 4 episodes in. So bad, it's there.
Actually, we should call this episode So Bad It's Happening, because that's what this is happening in this match. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just a match that is happening. And at this point, RVD's gone. CM Punk is gone. Even freaking Test is gone. And
Holly's gone.
Yeah. Like,
it's a hoss fight. It's a hoss fight with no weapons now.
It's just... wow, so it's not even Extreme anymore. It's just Elimination Chamber.
It's not even Elimination Chamber. It's 2 men in a giant cage-like structure with no one else left.
Great.
And Paul Heyman is screaming off to the side, and you can hear it if you're listening with headphones or 5.1 surround sound. It's awful.
Oh, I was listening with 5.1 surround sound, and my left speaker was in and I just heard Paul Heyman going like, yeah, and I'm just like...
Yeah. So the finish, let's just get there so we can get the hell out of here.
Yes.
Lashley hits the most awkward spear ever.
You can say that
sidestep, slow step, hit the ropes, sidestep, slow step, hits the spear. 1, 2, 3, wins the ECW championship to tremendous nothing. And then Paul Heyman is sent home next week because he's sick of how ECW is running. But they kayfabe it, right?
Plane ride. Ooh. That story hasn't ever been talked about before, has it? Jeez.
No. Can you tell me about it?
No.
It's another episode. Who am I kidding? So bad, it's bad.
So bad, it's happening. Thank you for joining us.
This is going to be the episode that requires like the most amount of post-production to make it funny.
Listen, hey, shout out to our post-production man, because good lord, does he make this show just funnier than it is.
He really does. Maybe if we snap our fingers, he'll make like a steel cage appear above us. I don't know. That's all I got. Josh, where can the people find you on the internet?
At Josh Robertson _00. Come hang out with me. You know what I'm going to say. I'm a damn good time.
He is a damn good time. And I'm at Joel Pearl, JoelPearl. It's Fightful Overbooked, FightfulOverbooked.com. youtube.com/Fightful Overbooked. Subscribe to us here, drop a like, and while you're at it, hit the bell, get your notifications, and get on top. All right, we'll see you next time. Cheers.